The price fell, the damage stayed. That's the strange part about gas prices. You can drive past a station, see the number on the sign finally move down, and feel a tiny bit of relief. Then you go inside a grocery store, open a utility bill, check a flight, or hear another inflation headline, and somehow the budget still feels bruised. Here's the contradiction. AAA had regular gas at about $4.07 a gallon on June 15. That was down from about $4.53 a month earlier. For a 12-gallon fill-up, that's roughly $5.50 of relief. Real money. You feel it. But that same fill-up was still about $11 more expensive than it would have been a year earlier. So the pump can honestly be better than last month and still worse than the life your brain remembers. The mood data looks the same way. The University of Michigan's Consumer Sentiment Index rose in preliminary June from 44.8 to 48.9, and the survey tied some of that relief to easier gasoline prices, but it was still far below 60.7 from a year earlier. So this video isn't about pretending lower gas doesn't matter. It does. It's about why lower gas can improve the mood for a week while the rest of the budget still acts like the shock never left. We're going to follow one shock through the system: oil shock, pump, delivery, shelf, fare, utility bill, expectations. And at every stop, we're going to ask the same question: has the shock actually left this bill yet? Start with the official inflation report. In May, the Consumer Price Index rose 0.5% from the month before and 4.2% from a year earlier. That's the big headline, but the more important line is underneath it. Energy rose 3.9% in May, and according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, energy accounted for over 60% of the monthly increase in the All Items Index. That's the first reveal. The pump wasn't just one annoying price on the side of the road. In that month, energy was the thing doing most of the pushing. This matters because people tend to think about inflation like one big fog. Prices are up. Life is expensive. The end. But this story works more like a spill. If the spill stays in one place, you clean it up. If it runs under the door, into the hallway, and under the furniture, you can wipe the first puddle and still smell the mess. In the May CPI data, gasoline rose 7% in 1 month and 40.5% over the year. Fuel oil was up 58.9% over the year. Electricity was up 5.9%. Utility gas was up 3% over the year, even though it slipped slightly that month. That mix is why the relief can feel confusing. Some parts cool, some parts lag, some parts are still working through the earlier hit. Here's where a lot of inflation stories lose people. A price can stop rising as fast, but that doesn't mean it went back down. A bill can be less bad than last month, but still much worse than the number you built your habits around. That's why households don't experience inflation the way a chart does. A chart sees the rate of change, you see the receipt. If gasoline was up sharply earlier, then a later decline can make the line look better while the total price in your life still sits above the old floor. So let's give the math a household. Call her Maya. Maya fills up once a week. Her fill-up is around $50 now. Compared with a month ago, she may save about $5.50 on that trip. That feels good. But compared with last year, that same trip is still about $11 higher. Multiply that by 4 weeks, and the monthly budget isn't celebrating, it's just bleeding a little slower. That's the first callback. Gas is down. Good. Now ask the better question. Where did the shock go? The first place it went was upstream, into oil and fuel markets. The Energy Information Administration's June outlook expected Brent crude to average about $105 a barrel in June and July, and it projected the 2026 retail gasoline price at $3.90 a gallon compared with $3.10 in 2025. Those forecasts can change quickly. Oil doesn't send calendar invites before it moves. But the point is useful. Even when pump prices start easing, the earlier shock can still be sitting inside wholesale prices, inventories, contracts, and expectations. And the pump itself isn't one simple thing. In March, EIA broke a $3.64 gallon of regular gas into pieces. Crude oil was 57%, refining was 21%, taxes were 14%, distribution and marketing were 8%. That means a gas price isn't just oil went up or oil went down, it's a stack. Crude, refining, taxes, delivery, local competition, station costs. Some pieces move fast, some move slowly, some barely move at all. And once you see that stack, the contradiction gets less mysterious. A falling crude price can help, but taxes don't fall because crude fell. Local costs don't vanish because crude fell. A retailer may still be working through fuel bought at a higher price. A station may face different competition than one across town. So the pump can move down before every piece of the pump has healed. And if that's true at the gas station, it's even more true once energy moves into other bills. That's the midpoint reframe. The pump isn't the bill. The pump is the warning light. When the warning light comes on, the first number you notice is gasoline, but the machine underneath is energy as an input cost. Energy helps move groceries, it helps run warehouses, it powers utilities, it pushes airline costs, and it affects what people think prices will do next. Look at diesel. The EIA's weekly data showed US on-highway diesel falling from about $5.52 on May 25 to $5.21 on June 8. So yes, it was moving down, but it was still about $1.74 higher than a year earlier. And diesel matters because it's not just what someone puts in a pickup, it's the fuel behind a lot of freight, trucks, equipment, and delivery routes. That doesn't give us permission to say diesel caused every grocery increase. It didn't. Food prices are messy. But it does tell us why the pump is only part of the story. A household may buy regular gasoline once a week, while the food system is touching diesel, electricity, packaging, refrigeration, labor, leases, and contracts all the way to the shelf. Here's where the grocery shelf enters the story. The May CPI report did not show groceries exploding that month. Food at home rose just 0.1% in May. Food away from home rose 0.3%. That's important, because we should not claim every grocery price is just gasoline in disguise. But over the year, food at home was still up 2.7%. Food away from home was up 3.5%, fruits and vegetables were up 6.1%, and non-alcoholic drinks were up 5.8%. So the shelf can feel expensive even after the pump improves, because the shelf isn't only reacting to today's gas sign. It reflects wages, rents, packaging, contracts, weather, demand, and yes, energy and transportation pressures that may have already moved through the chain. Here's the quiet trick of a higher price level. If something used to cost $100, then rose to $110, and now it's rising more slowly, your chart may show progress. Your bank account still sees the new base. It's not paying the rate, it's paying the level. For Maya, the grocery version is simple. Her $100 grocery basket doesn't need to jump another $10 this week to feel painful. If the old price level has already moved up, then a slower monthly increase can still leave her standing in the aisle thinking, wait, why is this still so much? That's the second callback. Gas is down. Good. Has the shock left the grocery shelf yet? Not cleanly. Then comes airfare. In the same May CPI report, airline fares rose 2.7% over the month. Separately, federal transportation data and AP reporting showed US carriers spent nearly $6.5 billion on fuel in April, with jet fuel around $4.11 a gallon. That doesn't mean every ticket price is only fuel. Airlines also respond to demand, routes, competition, staffing, and how many seats they put in the air. But fuel is one of the big cost pressures. When it jumps, airlines don't need to mail you a note saying that's the oil shock. It can just show up as a higher fare, a new fee, or fewer cheap seats. So when Maya checks a $400 flight and it still looks ugly, the cheaper gas sign down the street doesn't solve that. Her car and the plane live in the same energy world, but they don't update at the same speed. That's the third callback. Gas is down. Good. Has the shock left the airfare screen yet? Maybe not. Utilities are another place where the timing gets messy. In May, electricity prices rose 0.6% for the month and 5.9% over the year. Utility piped gas fell 0.5% that month, but was still up 3% over the year. That's a separate channel from gasoline. Your electric bill isn't waiting for the corner gas station to update its sign. It depends on fuel mix, weather, local rates, infrastructure, and regulation. That's why the timing feels almost designed to annoy you. Gas signs update in public. You see them every few blocks. Utility bills arrive on a schedule. Grocery prices change item by item. Airfare can move while you're refreshing the page. Expectations move inside people's heads. So the fastest price is the one you see first. The slower prices are the ones that make you wonder if the first relief was even real. But to the household, that distinction isn't comforting. Maya doesn't pay separate energy channels. She pays a $50 fill-up, a $100 grocery basket, a $200 utility bill, and maybe a $400 flight. Different systems, same checking account. And that's why the relief feels unfair. The pain arrives as one monthly budget. The explanations arrive as 5 different industries. Now comes the part that makes prices feel sticky even when some numbers improve. Expectations. In the University of Michigan survey, year-ahead inflation expectations edged down from 4.8% in May to 4.6% in preliminary June. That's movement in the right direction, but it was still above the 3.4% reading from February. That's a very human kind of data. People saw some gas relief, but they still worried higher inflation could stick around. Once prices have trained you to expect bad news, one cheaper fill-up doesn't instantly retrain your nervous system. That's why inflation can feel personal even when economists talk about it like a dashboard. You're not just paying prices, you're bracing for prices. That bracing changes behavior. Maybe you skip a dinner out because the grocery run was higher than expected. Maybe you delay the trip because the airfare looks wrong. Maybe you keep extra cash in checking because the utility bill has surprised you before. None of that shows up as a single dramatic moment. It shows up as smaller choices, less room, less trust, more mental math. And the bracing isn't equal. Michigan's survey noted that lower-income consumers had a particularly strong sentiment increase as gas eased, consistent with gasoline taking a larger share of their budgets. We don't need to invent an exact share to understand the pressure. If two households both spend $50 filling up, that $50 doesn't weigh the same. For one household, it's annoying. For another, it's the difference between paying a bill now or pushing it into next week. So now the whole loop is visible. Oil shock, pump, delivery, shelf, fare, utility bill, expectations. At the start, the viewer assumption was simple. If gas comes down, inflation should feel better quickly. And it can feel a little better quickly. That part is true. But the mistake is thinking the pump is the whole story. The pump is the first place many people notice the shock, not the last place it leaves. Here's the framework to take with you. Call it the relief delay audit. First, ask what got cheaper directly. That's the pump. Maya's sample fill-up is about $5.50 better than last month. Second, ask what already absorbed the shock. That might be delivery costs, grocery shelves, airline fuel, or utility systems. Third, ask what moves on a different clock. Contracts, regulated rates, airline capacity, store pricing, and household expectations don't all reset just because gas fell this week. Fourth, ask compared with when. Compared with last month, gas may look better. Compared with last year, that same fill-up may still cost about $11 more. This audit keeps you from falling for both bad stories. The first bad story says lower gas means everything is fine now. It doesn't. The second bad story says lower gas is fake. It's not fake either. The better story is slower but more useful. Relief can be real at the pump and incomplete in the budget. The same shock can leave one bill quickly, sit inside another bill for months, and keep living in expectations even after the headline improves. That's the piece that makes the anger make sense. The relief is visible in one place, the damage is distributed across many places, and distributed damage is harder to notice. Nobody sends one clean bill called the energy shock. It arrives as a few dollars here, a higher shelf price there, a weird fare, a utility increase, and a feeling that you should keep your wallet tense. So the useful question isn't only is gas down, the useful question is where did the shock go? If it's still sitting in delivery, groceries, utilities, airfares, or expectations, then the cheaper pump isn't fake, it's incomplete. And once you frame it that way, the whole cost of living story gets easier to read. You stop waiting for one number to rescue the whole budget. You start watching which parts of the shock have already passed through, which parts are still moving, and which parts may never fully give back the increase. Fast relief is the number on the gas sign. Slow relief is the cost that has to travel through contracts, inventories, routes, and pricing decisions. Sticky relief is the part that lives in expectations, because people remember the hit longer than they trust the discount. That's why this feels so familiar. The price fell, the damage stayed. Not everywhere forever, not in a simple straight line, but long enough for households to feel like the economy got the memo late. If this helped make the inflation story feel less abstract, subscribe for more visual explanations of how money actually works in everyday life. Because the next time a headline says prices are cooling, you will know to check the rest of the map. Thanks.